Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. I'm James McGowan.
I'm Jessica Faust.
And today we have with us Rachel Brooks for her first time on the YouTube channel.
We both do it at the same time. It's not even scripted.
So if you've been following along, we've been bringing the agents on one by one to sort of have a quick conversation with them and get to know them a little better. And our first question is, what's up with the cats?
Well, as you can see behind me, COVID's going really well. I don't leave, and it's great. But no, in real life, I only have one cat, and she's taking a nap right now. So I don't know if she'll be making a cameo across the screen, but if so, it would probably just be like a cat butt. So maybe that's okay that she's asleep.
I hope she does.
We do hope that she makes a cameo, and she has made many a cameo on our Instagram page. And she's a social media star now.
Yes. And she's made some cameos during our professional meetings that we have as an agency when we're talking about something very serious, and she hops up on the back of my chair, and I'm trying to stay focused because we're talking about like foreign rights or contracts, not cats.
She knows when she's needed.
Yes.
The comedic relief that we didn't know we needed.
Right.
I do have a question. Are you not at all a dog person? Are you just a cat person? Are you an animal lover in general?
I'm an animal lover in general. I used to dog sit whenever there were neighbors with dogs. I would want to, take them on a walk as a kid. So I'm not anti-dog, but cats are like the gold medal and dogs are the silver medal.
How many cats is too many cats? Because you've got a lot of cats behind you.
Well, how much happiness is too much happiness, James?
Fair point.
Okay.
Well then.
Well,
Moving on.
Well, okay, Rachel, you've been with BookEnds for 3 years now, right?
yeah, it was 3 years this summer, so a little over
Wow.
3 now.
Wow.
In a nice way, it actually feels like it's been longer. And I mean
It
that.
does,
It does, yeah.
but not in a bad way. Not like I'm a victim that can't leave.
That's just the YouTube channel.
Right, right,
This interview.
right. Yeah.
You've had an agent for how long in total?
I'm going into my 7th year, I believe. I started taking on my own clients in 2014, but I started training in 2013 as an agent apprentice with like a year-long training program of really preparing to take on my own people. And so time flies when you're in publishing. You blink and a decade's almost gone by.
So, and your list now runs the gamut from adult fiction to kid lit, including YA and some younger projects. Can you tell us a little bit about what sort of projects you're drawn to?
Every agent needs a balance on their list of things that they are passionate about, because that'll fuel you through the tough times. But you really need, I think, the majority of your list to also be marketable, because we are a commission-based job. We do want to be able to sell these books and keep agenting. So to stay in this business, we definitely need to keep that in the back of our minds as we're reading, that it can't just all be passion projects.
Well, I think that's something that you've always really impressed me with, is that, you have a strong editorial eye, clearly, and you recognize great books, but you also have a really solid business sense and a really great way of thinking from a business perspective outside of the box. And I think that's something that a lot of times authors, especially querying authors, forget, is that you're bringing in an agent as a business partner and for their role. And I guess I'd be curious about, what kind of business things that you feel like you bring to that, as well as your passion books.
Right. I mean, I would never take on a book that I just couldn't get through. I mean, even if it's not a passion project, you have to be able to, read it more than once. There has to be some amount of like there, even if there's not love. If I wasn't an agent, I probably wouldn't pick them up on the shelf. They're just not my jam, but I can definitely see why they're other people's and why people gravitate towards them, and the quality of that writing or that premise for that specific area of the market, and then go for it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, as an agent, our job is to sell.
Right. And I feel like some authors sometimes forget, I don't know if this sounds harsh, that we're not a friend so much. Like, we're friendly, but we're here to be a business partner, just like, the realtor for your house. You want them to negotiate the best contract for you, be up on the market. It's just a balance. And
you kind of have to keep that distance, because sometimes we do have to give sort of the harsh reality to things that,
right.
you know, from a business perspective.
Publishing has a lot of ups and downs, and it's very hard to, you know, tell a friend all the downs if you don't have a little bit of that distance. And I think it really benefits us to have that distance, not only just the emotional side of it, but I can think better about how to strategize to get the author out of a bad situation or pivot their career if I don't have that same amount of emotional attachment I would if they were my friend, where I would just be, you know, oh my God, this is terrible. I can't believe this is happening to you. Where instead I'm like, no, it's okay. We're going to do this, this, and this. I've got a plan. So, you know, it does work out.
And that's one of the trickiest parts about navigating the entire publishing process, is that the team that you're working with is super friendly, but you do have to be able to separate creativity and emotion and all of the things that we pour into the work, but also that business sense and being pragmatic and all of that. And that's one of the hardest things. I think we talk about it a lot on the YouTube too. For authors that are shifting from revising to querying, you have to switch your hat there. And you have to just be ready to take on a new sense of the business of publishing.
I can only imagine how it is for authors. It's very hard. They've worked on some of these books for a very long time, especially if it's their first book, you know. It's a very personal thing, but I find that in the long term, the career authors, at least, who, you know, they might be on their 10th book, 20th book, whatever it is, they're the ones that have fully transitioned to being able to wear that business hat almost full time.
But even like personal passions, like, you know, for me personally, if a book has a chef in it, it's really hard for me to reject the query on that, because I don't know why. I just always think I need those books on my list. So anything like in that realm.
I can't get away from YA fantasy, even though I've told myself, you have enough of this on your list. It's a very tough market right now. And as soon as I'll say it in a meeting of, you know what, I'm really pulling back on YA fantasy, within a week I'm offering rep to somebody that has this amazing YA fantasy that I just can't let go. And I said I wouldn't, but this is the last one, I swear. And then it never is.
It's
so.
the jinx. You have to say that you're going to sign up a bunch of YA fantasy.
Right.
You have a hard time finding it.
Right. Reverse psychology myself.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm constantly assessing my list too, in that same way of, you know, okay, maybe I have enough of this one type of thing for a while. I have a lot on submission that's kind of overlapping with editors of the same thing. So maybe I shouldn't, you know, gobble up a bunch from my inbox that's the same until those have found homes, just to kind of diversify what I'm shopping and just diversify my list. Because if one area of the market suddenly isn't in vogue anymore, I don't want all of my list to be that one thing, because then what am I going to do? I'm going to have to go search for like 20 new clients because I only had one type of thing on my list.
Now, you had mentioned you've been doing this for 7 years, and do you remember sort of your vision of what you thought your list would be and how that's...
Well, what I used to love before I started training, I just read urban fantasy all the time, which I don't even rep now. A lot of Laurel K. Hamilton, Chloe Neal, Rochelle Mead, all their adult works with like vampires and succubus. And that's all I was reading because, you know, when you're not working in publishing, you just read what you want.
Yeah.
But then when I started training and reading in all these different areas, like, you know what? I'm probably not just gonna rep that type of book, and maybe that's not really where my editorial skills shine best. I started veering more toward women's fiction and romance, and I'm one of those late romance bloomers. Like, people talk about reading the little Harlequin snuck from their mom or grandma under the bed, but I didn't read my first true romance novel until I was an adult. And then really, once I started training, started reading them and liked them and found that that was an area I excelled in. So now lots of romance on my list.
That's
Yeah,
great.
Jessica talks all the time about how your list always takes on a life of its own. You can't really predict it or really form it the way you want to. It just kind of happens, which you kind of mentioned too, in terms of, okay, I'm going to pull back on the YA fantasy, and then suddenly you're offering rep.
Right, it does. And my very first sale back in the day, it was so long ago, back in the day, my first deal 7 years ago, it was a cozy mystery series. I didn't have cozies on my wish list in my bio. I wasn't seeking them out or anything, but one just happened across my query inbox. I loved it, took a leap of faith on it, and so did the author, because I didn't have a track record with cozies, and then we sold it. So it was great, and it just showed me from that very beginning of my career that you don't really know what you're going to sell or what you're going to want to take on. It just always changes.
You don't kind of know what's going to bring you the joy either. What will be that passion project is sometimes hard to predict too.
Right. The passion, or, if I just had a chat with a lot of editors that are kind of looking for the same thing, and then that thing happens across my inbox, even if that wasn't something prior that I was really looking for, now I know, okay, this is maybe like the next hot thing. I should perk up to these types of queries. So.
Yeah, and while we're eagerly awaiting to share the details of them, which we can't yet, you just recently sold a middle grade and a picture book, two age groups that you're not actively working in, right?
Yeah, I don't represent those, right? I don't do them. They're not in my bio, not on my wish list. They were already existing clients. They weren't people that I just signed up from the slush. But it is really bizarre that these two that I never did, now with a few weeks of each other, sold for the first time. So they're very excited to be kind of having their foot in two age groups at once. And then so am I, just to see them blossom in different areas and kind of diversify where their income is coming from and what they feel like maybe they want to focus on might change. So we're all very excited.
Well, and it's a great look at, we often get authors who ask the question, well, what if I sign with you, but I write something that you don't represent? And it just goes to show that how things can evolve and take on a life of their own. But you also, I assume, had the support of everybody with those experiences and who do rep that more regularly at BookEnds. And
Right.
How did that work collaboratively a little bit for you and everybody else?
Well, thanks to Slack, it's so easy. Private message people or create a little group of just whoever does that area. I picked James' brain a lot, Mo. There was a lot of people that do these areas more often than I do, and they were a huge help because I kind of had an idea of who I wanted to pitch and would do some research, but then having them review the list, oh, maybe you don't want to try that imprint first, you want this one, or this editor actually is more hungry right now than that one, and just really hone that list down.
Yeah.
Helps.
That was one of the coolest parts about watching you sell both of those books too, because you knew all of the parts, right? Like you knew everything you had to do and you pretty much got most of it. And then it was just like checks and balances. But like we know the parts of selling a book, no matter the genre, no matter the age group. It's just a matter of like having it all click together.
Right. It's the same process no matter what the
Yeah.
book is, of how we go about it. Even genres I do all the time, I still refresh on what the editors are looking for most in this minute, since it changes so quickly. So those skills transfer to whatever you're doing, but it's just I'm not keeping my ear quite as open to picture books as you are, because you do them all the time.
Right.
And if you suddenly were doing romance or women's fiction, it would be the same way. You can search through Slack for stuff, but it's just not quite the same as picking someone's brain for live to the minute information.
No, it's true. And I always say that I approach every submission as if it's the first one I've ever made. Like I research editors, and even though I obviously have connections with so many, I still do all this research and this deep diving and these conversations with people at BookEnds just to make sure I have the most up-to-minute information and that I haven't forgotten something or missed something, so that I'm giving that the best, foot forward. And it's interesting because I think that's when you take on something, a new genre, you're doing a similar thing.
Yeah,
Right.
and information's always changing in publishing too. Like one editor tweaks their wish list or they move to this house and imprint. So it's like kind of having the live feed that BookEnds has with our Slack. It keeps you fresh and up to date on everything.
Right. Because if you're looking at information someone posted from a lunch that they had 6 months ago, that's probably not what the editor wants now. So, it's great that we share all of our phone call information and lunches, but we have to continually keep sharing, which is one thing that I love about BookEnds, that we're always helping each other with this kind of like hive mind matrix thing that we have going on of everyone's information is your information and my information is yours.
No, definitely.
Change your face. Stop with the matrix comparison, please, Rachel.
It wasn't that.
He makes that face a lot.
It's my face. I don't know
Don't
what
take
to
his
do.
face personally because it's his face.
It's like resting board face.
Yeah.
Well, I have meeting face, it was like resting.
You
meeting
do.
face.
You have a very
You-
impressive meeting face.
Rachel has the most amazing poker face I have ever seen in my life. Like you
I
can
just-
keep a straight face well beyond anything I could imagine.
I've just found it's a good way to not accidentally roll my eyes at something. People won't know when I'm really like, laughing or crying or whatever it might be.
It's impressive. On the other hand, I can't hold in a laugh, so I'm always like biting my lip and biting my tongue and covering my face. But you are expert at it. It's incredibly impressive. I am envious.
Add it to my resume.
So in our conversations with all the other agents at BookEnds, we've been talking about creative outlets, because who knew that the agents at BookEnds had so many different creative outlets. So can you tell us a little bit about yours outside of work? Is there something that really inspires you or that you do to recharge when you're not working?
I really love to bake and cook and try new recipes. Whatever it is, I'm kind of up for the challenge just because, well, I like to eat firstly. So it's
We
great.
love to eat.
You understand. I don't need to explain this to you, but it's just fun to me. I also watch Great British Bake Off. I just
Compulsively.
right. Who doesn't? It's so calming. But
Yes.
it is. So I like to do my own little Great British Bake Off at my house.
What is your favorite recipe to make?
I really like cobblers. I'm a sucker for cobblers, especially in the summer when the berries are fresh. It's just cobblers.
Yeah, I think of your cobbler. I think of you and cobbler all the time.
Thank you. I'm so glad I have a brand.
Jessica got me hooked on Top Chef, and it's just been all Top Chef all the time lately.
I haven't seen the recent seasons, but I used to watch Top Chef religiously. And it's really interesting to me that we can be so into a competition or a show where we don't get to eat the food, like we don't get to test it. We're just hearing people describe the food, yet I'm so invested in whether this biscuit has a soggy bottom or whether they didn't do the meat just right or whatever.
But don't you find you can like predict it?
Yeah.
Like they'll be cooking, I'll be like, oh no, it's gonna be too salty.
Right? You're just like, what are they doing? Oh, great. Good job.
But I also love Project Runway because I love watching the creative mind at work. But I am clueless. I have been watching that for years. They walk that runway and I get it wrong every time. I'm like, that's beautiful. And they're like, that's terrible. And I'm like, I know nothing about fashion. Nothing.
You know scarves.
I do know scarves, yes.
So if you were to go into fashion, you would just have a scarf line. That's what you do.
Yes, well, it is the key to solving any and every problem.
I almost wore a scarf today in your honor, but I don't think I can pull it off. I have it. See? I just can't do it.
Anyone. No scarf.
No scarf.
So you are also a fellow goldfish and Cheez-It lover.
Yes.
We talk about this an unhealthy amount. We talk about this.
I think we talk about it just the right
Just the
amount.
appropriate amount. Where do you stand?
Okay, well, this weekend I had goldfish, but despite that, if I was on a deserted island and I could only bring one, I think it would be the Cheez-Its because of the salt ratio. They just win, just by a little bit, but they win.
That's good. I think I'd go goldfish, but that changes every month.
Okay.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, I am not a connoisseur. I'd go Cheez-It.
2 Cheez-Its, 1 goldfish.
I understand it, but next month I might go Cheez-It, so I can't even criticize anything. I just can't decide.
I'm disappointed you don't use that Cheez-It Zoom background I sent you more often.
Yes, right. It's excellent. There's a Cheez-It on the Empire State Building.
Well, let's see it. You can do it.
I don't know if yes, here it is.
Oh, yes.
And it rounds my head out just the perfect amount.
I mean,
isn't it great? It's so
It's so crisp too.
It
It's
does.
like-
It's like a good one.
I can honestly think that there is no better ending to a video than we've ever had than the Cheez-It one.
Yes. It was fun having you on the channel. Thanks so much for joining us. If anybody has any questions for Rachel, don't hesitate to put them in the comments. We will work to get you an answer from her. But thanks for watching, and we hope you enjoyed joining us on YouTube, Rachel.
I just loved it.
We like having you. You were a good victim.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we're looking forward to you joining us next time.
Bye.
You can't even see my hand.
Jesus.